Sparks in the Ashes. Chapter 1. The Invitation. Aurelia Alvarenga, lead biomedical engineer at Genex Biosolutions, had dedicated the last 12 years of her life to the company. Genex was one of the largest contributors to the medical field, and Aurelia hardly ever took personal time. So when an invitation for her 10-year high school reunion appeared in her inbox, she frowned. She had ignored every previous reunion, burying herself instead in the development of Genex's new robotics department. 15 years ago, she had never been one of the popular kids. She'd stayed under the radar until senior year. Now, sitting at her desk, she closed her eyes as the memories returned. She had been in the library, researching her final paper when the lights flickered. Aurelia sighed, gathered her books, and was about to leave when a voice stopped her. "Oh, the mouse is still squeaking in the dark?" Aurelia froze, fingers tightening around her books. Laughter echoed from his friends. Stephen Roman, the school's biggest bully, her personal nightmare, stepped into her path and knocked her books from her hands. She bent to retrieve them, but he kicked them further away, then grabbed her by the hair and hissed in her ear. "Little mouse, you think you can outsmart me?" Her anger boiled over. She tried to break free and failed, then the lights went out. What happened next shocked them both. His grip loosened, she swung. Her fist sank into his stomach, and when he bent over, her knee came up hard. The emergency lights flicked on to find Stephen on his knees, grimacing in pain. She bent to pick up her books and whispered, "If you ever touch me again, I will end you." Then she walked past him and his stunned friends. What Stephen didn't know was that Aurelia had been taking self-defense classes on weekends. She stayed clear of him for the rest of the year, then graduated and left town without looking back. Her mother occasionally updated her on people from home, but Aurelia always changed the subject. Now, 20 years later, she thought she had buried it all: the humiliation, the torn books, the flushed notebooks. Her finger hovered over the delete button. A deep sigh escaped. Maybe it was time to face her demons. In a rare impulse, she clicked accept. Chapter 2. The Reunion. Aurelia stepped out of the car, sunlight warming her face. She slipped on her sunglasses and closed the door. At the house, her mother Lena waited, arms open. "Bless up, ya daughter, welcome home." Aurelia smiled, kissing her on the cheek. The warmth and familiar smells of home wrapped around her as her mother ushered her to the kitchen and poured tea. They talked about family, work, and the reunion. "Are you sure, my daughter?" Lena asked, spoon stilled midair. Aurelia nodded, though she saw the concern in her mother's eyes. Later, upstairs in her old room, she dressed carefully, braids pinned with a few strands loose, black dress smoothed down, minimal makeup and a hint of perfume. For a moment she considered changing into her pajamas and spending the evening with her mom. But her mother's reflection in the mirror showed doubt too, and Aurelia decided to go. She kissed her mother on the cheek, stepped into the cool Jamaican night and drove to the venue. Parking outside, she caught her own gaze in the rearview mirror. "Get a grip, Aurelia. You're one of the best biomedical engineers in the world. You've patented technologies, built mechanical miracles. This is just a party." Inside, the music was lively. She accepted a glass of wine from a server and stood near the bar, tapping her fingers to the beat. "Aurelia Alvarenga. Didn't think you'd be here." She turned, and her breath caught. Valeria Constantine. The red dress clung to her like liquid ruby. Blonde hair in a chic updo, ice blue eyes, lips that could kiss her senseless. Aurelia's grip on the glass tightened. "I didn't think Jamaica's best biomedical engineer made time for reunions," Valeria said. Aurelia frowned slightly. She hadn't realized Valeria even knew what she did. "I thought I'd tick this one off my bucket list," she managed. Valeria smiled, sipping champagne, her gaze never leaving Aurelia's. "You clean up nicely." Heat bloomed low in Aurelia's stomach. Before she could reply, the music shifted and Valeria set down her glass, hand outstretched. "Dance with me, Alvarenga." Electricity raced up Aurelia's arm as their hands brushed. Valeria drew her closer, perfume distracting, breath warm at her ear. They swayed together as if they'd done it 1,000 times. "What made you come?" Valeria murmured. Time to face my demons, Aurelia whispered back. Valeria's eyes glinted. Demons have a way of submitting. Then Aurelia noticed a movement in her peripheral vision. Her body went rigid. Valeria pulled her closer, but it was too late. She recognized the figure. Valeria Constantine was Stephen Roman's sister, the girl who'd picked him up from school once years ago. Dancing with her now felt like a different kind of torment. The song ended. Aurelia excused herself, fled to the restroom, and exhaled the breath she'd been holding. She stayed there longer than necessary until a soft knock startled her. Valeria stood outside with a glass of wine. Stephen was an asshole in school, Valeria said gently. He tortured you and others. After high school, he messed with the wrong people. The real world humbled him. Her smile was apologetic. Aurelia relaxed, finished the wine. Don't run, Valeria said, touching her arm. Have another drink. Maybe a chat. Aurelia just nodded. Back at the bar they sat in loaded silence, until a voice behind her spoke her name. Aurelia Alvarenga. Stephen Roman. But not the Stephen she remembered. This one looked smaller, hands shaking. I want to apologize for my behavior in high school, he said quietly. You had every right to hit me that day. Valeria laughed beside her, the sound soothing and intoxicating. Aurelia smirked. Served you right. With that, she turned back to her drink. Stephen shuffled away, and 20 years seemed to lift off her shoulders. Chapter 3. Valeria Constantine. The next morning sunlight streamed through Aurelia's childhood bedroom. She stretched, surprised at how deeply she had slept. Downstairs her mother was making pancakes. Good morning, Mom. Did you sleep well? Yes, my darling. And you? Like a baby. Stephen Roman apologized to me last night, and I danced with his sister. Lena put down the spatula, arms crossed, clearly wanting details. Aurelia laughed and told her everything: Stephen's apology, the dance, the drinks, the conversation. Valeria Constantine, her mother asked, eyebrows raised. Aurelia blushed and escaped with an excuse to go jogging. She slipped in her earbuds and jogged down the familiar path, quiet on a Saturday morning. A mile in she realized she had forgotten her water bottle and veered into town toward the old shop. She pulled open the fridge door and muttered to herself. Shit. I ran out without my wallet. Talking to yourself is a sign of lunacy, a voice teased. She turned. Valeria stood there in a sports top and yoga pants, toned stomach visible. Aurelia's pulse quickened. Valeria, do you make a habit of sneaking up on people, or is it just me? Valeria smiled, bought 2 bottles of water, and handed one to her. Outside, she gestured to a bench. They sat, Aurelia trying to appear nonchalant. I didn't know you jogged? Valeria's head tilted, voice laced with flirtation. Your pickup lines need more spice, Alvarenga. Aurelia opened her mouth, then shut it. Valeria's laugh was melodic, infectious. Before she could stop herself, Aurelia said, If I wanted to pick you up, you'd know. Valeria froze mid-laugh, eyes flicking to hers. Heat rushed to Aurelia's cheeks. She jumped up, made an excuse, and disappeared, scolding herself all the way home. Later, after showering and answering emails, she found her mother watching an old movie. They sat together quietly. When the credits rolled, Lena went to make tea. Alone, Aurelia thought of Valeria again, shaking her head to banish those ice blue eyes. A knock at the door startled her. It was 9:30. Through the peephole she saw Valeria. Heart racing, palms damp, Aurelia opened the door. Valeria, is everything okay? Valeria smiled and handed her a simple, elegant business card. I just wanted to give you this before you disappear tomorrow. Then she turned and melted into the night. Aurelia stood in the doorway long after she left, card still in hand. Only when the night air bit at her legs did she close the door and read it. Valeria Constantine, cybersecurity analyst. Contact number beneath. Tomorrow she would return to Kingston, back to the work that always swallowed her time. But the card in her pocket burned like a coal. She knew her life had just shifted. Which way, she would soon find out. Chapter 4. The Call. Back in Kingston, Aurelia threw herself into work. The familiar hum of GenX Biosolutions labs wrapped around her like armor, the sterile air, the quiet clicks of machines, the weight of deadlines. Yet no matter how busy her days became, one thing refused to leave her mind: the slim, elegant card resting in the pocket of her laptop bag. Every evening she caught herself reaching for it, fingertips grazing the embossed name. Valeria Constantine, cybersecurity analyst. Aurelia, the woman who could face down boardrooms, invent machines to save lives, and tame robotic limbs into miracles, hesitated at the thought of dialing a single number. A week passed before she gave in. The city outside her apartment pulsed with Friday night life, but inside was silent. She sat on the couch, glass of wine untouched, phone in hand. Her thumb hovered, then pressed the digits. It rang twice. Aurelia Alvarenga, Valeria's voice came through, smooth, low, as if she had been expecting the call. Aurelia's mouth went dry. I didn't think you'd pick up so quickly. I don't let calls from brilliant engineers go to voicemail, Valeria teased. What took you so long? Aurelia's laugh was short, nervous. Work. Work, Valeria echoed knowingly. Let me guess, Gen X and their latest toys? Or is it one of those projects no one outside the company should know about? The words pricked at Aurelia's attention. Few people ever spoke about her job in that tone, half flirt, half probe. Why do I feel like you already know more than you should? Valeria chuckled softly. Cybersecurity, remember? Information is my oxygen. And Gen X is an interesting company to breathe around. The shift in her voice was subtle, but Aurelia caught it. Serious. Guarded. What do you mean? A pause. Then, do you really want to talk about this on the phone? Silence stretched between them. Finally, Aurelia exhaled. No, maybe not. Good. Then let me buy you dinner tomorrow. Neutral ground. Public enough to be safe, private enough to talk. Aurelia hesitated. Her heart wanted to say yes before her mind could form an excuse. All right. Dinner. Valeria's voice softened. I'll send you the address. Trust me, Alvarenga. The line clicked off, leaving Aurelia staring at her reflection in the darkened window. Trust. That was not something she gave easily. The next evening, the restaurant Valeria had chosen sat tucked away in a quiet Kingston street. Low lighting, exposed brick, jazz curling through the air. Aurelia arrived early, scanning the room with practiced caution before sliding into a corner booth. When Valeria walked in, time stuttered. Black blazer over a silk blouse, hair loose around her shoulders, confidence radiating like perfume. She spotted Aurelia instantly and crossed the room with a smile that made the engineer's pulse stutter. They ordered wine, made small talk, let the warmth of food and laughter loosen the edges between them. But eventually Valeria leaned in, her voice low. You should know, Aurelia. Stephen's name surfaced again recently. The fork stilled in Aurelia's hand. My brother has a way of reappearing where he doesn't belong, Valeria continued, eyes sharp now. And some of the digital trails we're following suggest Gen X might not be as airtight as you think. Cold ran down Aurelia's spine. You're saying Stephen. Valeria raised a hand. I'm saying there are cracks. And someone's exploiting them. Whether it's him or someone else, I can't say yet. But if you're involved in Gen X's robotics division, you may already be on the board. The hum of jazz faded into a low roar in Aurelia's ears. This was no longer flirtation. This was a warning. And in Valeria's eyes, beneath the sharpness, flickered something else. Not just concern. Protection. Chapter 5, Fractures. The air between them thickened after Valeria's warning. Aurelia pushed her plate aside, appetite gone. Stephen, she said carefully, what does he have to do with any of this? Valeria's expression shifted, the flirtation replaced with something heavier. She lifted her glass, took a slow sip, then set it down. Stephen isn't my brother by blood, she said. He was adopted when I was 8. My parents, they thought they were saving him. But Stephen's always carried darkness, Aurelia. High school was just the start. When the world finally knocked him down, it didn't erase that darkness, it taught him to wear it better. Aurelia's chest tightened. The apology Stephen had given her at the reunion played back in her mind, but now it felt different, like a performance. So why tell me this now? She asked. Valeria leaned in, voice barely above the hum of jazz. Because the name tied to the breach in Genex's robotics division? It traces back to Steven. Someone using his old aliases has been probing your systems. And if he's involved, she shook her head. Then he's closer than you think. The room seemed to tilt. Aurelia prided herself on precision, on keeping her professional world impenetrable. Yet here was Valeria, peeling back the illusion of safety with a few measured words. If what you're saying is true, Aurelia said slowly, then Genex's entire robotics wing is compromised. Thousands of lives, projects years in the making. That's why I agreed to meet you, Valeria cut in. Because you're not just a target, Aurelia. You're the key. Whatever's happening, Steven, or whoever's behind him, wants what you've built. Silence stretched between them. Then Aurelia exhaled, her voice tight. And you? What do you want? For the first time that evening, Valeria's composure faltered. She tilted her head, ice-blue eyes softening. I want you safe. Even if it means burning bridges I never asked for. The words landed heavier than Aurelia expected. Beneath the professional edge, beneath the warning, there was something undeniably personal. She tried to speak, but the waiter returned, breaking the moment. They settled the bill in silence, both lost in thought. Outside, the Kingston night wrapped around them, humid and alive with distant traffic. Valeria walked Aurelia to her car, steps unhurried. You don't have to trust me, Valeria said finally. But don't ignore this. And don't ignore me. Aurelia hesitated, then reached into her bag and pulled out her business card. She pressed it into Valeria's hand. Then don't disappear on me, Constantine. Their fingers lingered longer than necessary, electricity arcing between them. Then Aurelia slid into her car, the engine roaring to life. As she pulled away, her reflection in the mirror caught her off guard, a woman who, for the first time in years, wasn't entirely in control. And in the pocket of Valeria's blazer, two cards burned side by side, hers and Aurelia's, as if daring them both toward a collision neither could stop. Chapter 6, Breach. Monday morning began like every other. The Genex robotics division buzzed with its usual hum of machines and murmured conversations, the kind of white noise Aurelia usually found grounding. But by mid-morning, ripple of unease cut through the lab. Two junior engineers whispered by the servers. Another sat pale-faced in front of her monitor. The head of IT stalked past, muttering into his headset. Aurelia felt it before anyone told her something was wrong. She swiped her badge and entered the secure robotics wing. The lights above flickered once, too long, too deliberate. Her stomach sank. At her workstation, a notification pulsed red across her screen. Unauthorized access detected. System override initiated. Her heart thudded. Genex's robotics prototypes were more than machines. They were potential life-saving technologies, exoskeletons for rehabilitation, surgical microdrones, prosthetics more advanced than anything else in the field. If someone gained control, the damage could be catastrophic. Lock it down, she barked to the nearest tech. But the override ran deeper than any standard breach. Firewalls folded like paper. Passwords changed in real time. It was surgical, precise, the work of someone who knew the system inside out. Her mind flashed back to Valeria's words, Steven's aliases, probing your systems. Hands steady despite her pulse, Aurelia pulled out her phone under the desk and typed a single message. To Valeria Constantine. Subject, now. You were right. It's happening. Minutes later, her phone buzzed. Valeria, get out of the robotics wing. Right now. Aurelia's jaw clenched. Leave? This was her work, her responsibility. But then the monitors around her went black one by one, like candles snuffed out. The servers groaned, and a low mechanical whine filled the air as one of the prototype exosuits in its glass chamber shuddered to life, systems rebooting without authorization. Gasps erupted around her. Someone cursed. Dr. Alvarenga, it's moving on its own. The exosuit's arms jerked upward, metal fingers clenching. Its sensors glowed red, a violent mimicry of life. Aurelia grabbed the emergency shutdown switch and yanked it down. Sparks flew. The machine stilled, but the silence that followed was worse than the noise. She exhaled, chest tight. Whoever was behind this hadn't just stolen data, they had tried to weaponize her work. Her phone buzzed again. Valeria, do not stay there. I'm coming to you. For the first time in years, Aurelia allowed herself to step back from her machines. She left the lab, walking quickly through the sterile halls, heart pounding louder than her footsteps. Outside, the Kingston heat hit her face, grounding her in reality. But nothing could erase the truth. Gen X wasn't safe anymore. And in her pocket, her phone lit up with one more message from Valeria. If Steven is involved, this isn't just about your work. It's about you. Chapter 7. Sparks in the Dark. Valeria arrived at Aurelia's apartment as dusk fell over Kingston. She moved with purpose, but when Aurelia opened the door, there was no mistaking the tension in her eyes, equal parts sharp focus, and something softer she tried to mask. You shouldn't have stayed in that lab, Valeria said, stepping inside without waiting to be asked. I shut it down, Aurelia countered. If you hadn't, that exosuit could have crushed someone. Valeria's tone was clipped, but the fire in her voice wasn't anger. It was fear. The silence that followed was heavy. Then Aurelia exhaled, shoulders dropping. You were right. I should have listened. Valeria softened, just slightly. She placed a hand on Aurelia's arm. I didn't come here to gloat, Alvarenga. I came here to make sure you're safe. The touch lingered, warm against Aurelia's skin. For a moment, the chaos of the day receded, and it was just the two of them, the engineer who built miracles and the analyst who saw through walls. Aurelia's throat tightened. You keep saying that you want me safe. But why? Valeria's lips curved into a faint, almost rueful smile. Because sometimes, even I can't firewall my heart. The words landed like a blow and a bomb all at once. Heat bloomed in Aurelia's stomach, rushing upward until it burned her cheeks. She opened her mouth to speak, but Valeria stepped back, breaking the current between them. We don't have time for distractions, Valeria said, her voice steadier now. Steven's trail isn't just circling Gen X. It's circling you. I think he's after more than the technology. Then what? Aurelia asked, though the answer already pulsed like a drumbeat in her chest. Valeria's eyes locked on hers. Revenge. Control. Maybe both. He hasn't forgotten who stood up to him when no one else did. Aurelia swallowed hard, the memory of high school, the fists, the whispers, the humiliation, flooding back. But this wasn't the boy she once faced in a library. This was a man cloaked in shadows, manipulating systems with invisible hands. And now she was in his sights again. Still, when Valeria turned to leave, Aurelia caught her wrist. Don't go. Not tonight. The words came out more vulnerable than she intended. Valeria froze, eyes flickering with something unguarded, something hungry. Careful, Alvarenga, she murmured, stepping closer. I don't do half measures. Neither of them moved for a long moment. The night outside pressed against the glass, Kingston alive with noise, but in here it was silence and heartbeat, breath and distance closing inch by inch. Then Aurelia let go, not of Valeria, but of her walls. Chapter 8. First Surrender. Valeria didn't move when Aurelia's hand slipped from her wrist. For a heartbeat, the silence between them was a question neither dared ask aloud. Then, slowly, deliberately, Valeria closed the space. Her perfume was faint cedar, smoke, something crisp, and Aurelia inhaled it like oxygen. You're dangerous, Aurelia whispered, though her voice trembled with something other than fear. Not to you, Valeria replied, eyes locked on hers. The kiss came unannounced, not a clash, but a claiming. Valeria's lips pressed soft at first, testing, teasing, then deepened when Aurelia leaned into her with a hunger she had denied for far too long. The world narrowed to touch, to heat, to the sound of breath mingling. Aurelia's hands found Valeria's waist, pulling her closer, anchoring herself to something terrifyingly real. Valeria's fingers threaded into Aurelia's braids, tilting her head, deepening the kiss until sparks seemed to crackle in the room around them. When they finally broke apart, Aurelia's pulse thundered in her ears. I told you, Valeria murmured against her lips. I don't do half measures. Aurelia let out a shaky laugh. Good. Neither do I. They moved together again, the kiss fiercer now, desperate, as if the night itself could end and take them with it. Clothes were forgotten, reason abandoned. Aurelia, so used to control, let herself surrender, let herself burn. And Valeria. Valeria kissed her like a promise. The night gave way to dawn, soft lights spilling across the sheets. Aurelia stirred first, the weight of the moment crashing in, not regret, but clarity. She turned to find Valeria awake, watching her with that same intensity, though gentler now. So, this is what distraction feels like, Aurelia muttered. Valeria smiled faintly. And still, I'd burn for it. Before Aurelia could respond, her phone buzzed violently on the nightstand. Both women stiffened. She reached for it, scanning the screen. Urgent. Robotics breach, servers compromised. Prototype stolen. Her blood ran cold. They took something. In the night. Valeria sat up, already in motion. Then we don't have time for hesitation. This isn't just Steven playing games anymore. You think it's him? I think it's bigger, Valeria said, pulling on her clothes. And I think someone inside Gen X opened the door for him. Aurelia's chest tightened. Conspiracy. Inside her own company. Valeria caught her gaze firm. If we're going to survive this, Aurelia, we fight it together. You with your machines. Me with my code. No walls. No half measures. Aurelia nodded, the echo of their night still pulsing through her, fusing with the fear, the fury, the fire. Together. And somewhere in the city, in some hidden room, a man watched encrypted footage of the exosuit leaving Gen X. His lips curved into a thin smile as he muttered her name. Little Mouse. Chapter 9. The collision begins. The day was a blur of crisis meetings and locked-down labs. Gen X executives barked orders, PR managers whispered damage control, and IT scrambled to contain what was already gone. Aurelia sat in the boardroom, her laptop open, her mind sharper than ever. Beside her, Valeria worked in silence, fingers flying across her own machine. She wasn't supposed to be there, no outsider ever breached Gen X's inner sanctum, yet no one dared to remove her. The way she spoke, the way she commanded, made even the executives listen. On the screen, a series of logs scrolled by. Red marks where the system had been pierced, paths that twisted and overlapped like veins of poison. Valeria's eyes narrowed. This wasn't an outside job. Look. She tapped the screen. The breach didn't claw its way in from the firewalls, it opened from within. Aurelia felt the air leave her lungs. An insider. Someone with high clearance, Valeria confirmed. Someone who knew the robotics wing protocols, the prototypes, the schedules. Aurelia's thoughts raced. Her division was small, tight-knit. Every face was familiar. The idea of betrayal among them made her stomach twist. One of the executives cleared his throat. Dr. Alvarenga, can you confirm if the stolen prototype could be weaponized? She clenched her jaw. Anything can be weaponized in the wrong hands. But yes, if modified, it could become more than rehabilitation tech. Much more. Valeria glanced sideways at her, reading what she didn't say aloud. It could become a weapon of war. The meeting dissolved into arguments, accusations flying, but Aurelia and Valeria exchanged a single look and rose together. Outside the boardroom, the noise of chaos dimmed. We can't wait for them to solve this, Aurelia whispered. We won't, Valeria replied. I already traced the breach to a local relay. Whoever's feeding Steven or whoever he's fronting for is close. Too close. They drove through Kingston's night in silence, city lights flickering over their faces. Valeria guided them with calm precision, every turn deliberate. Finally, she stopped in front of an abandoned warehouse near the docks. Here? Aurelia asked, doubt and adrenaline tangling in her chest. Valeria nodded. Signal leads here. We go in quiet. Inside, dust and shadows stretched across the concrete floor. Computers hummed against one wall, monitors casting pale light over stacks of crates. Aurelia's breath caught. One of the crates was stamped with the Gen X logo. Valeria crouched by the monitors, her eyes sharp. Encrypted tunnels. Whoever's running this is feeding data out of Kingston. Not to Steven. To someone bigger. Aurelia reached for the crate, fingertips brushing the familiar markings of her company. Anger swelled, hot and raw. But before she could speak, a voice echoed through the warehouse. Little mouse, sniffing out cheese again. Aurelia froze. From the shadows, Stephen Roman stepped forward. Not the boy from the library, not the man from the reunion, but something harder, leaner, eyes burning with the thrill of the hunt. Valeria's hand brushed against Aurelia's, subtle but steady. Together, she whispered. And Aurelia nodded, pulse hammering, as the collision they had both felt coming finally struck. Chapter 10. Shadows and Teeth. Stephen Roman's voice lingered in the warehouse air like smoke, curling into every corner. Aurelia straightened, her fists curling at her sides, though her heartbeat threatened to drown out thought. Valeria shifted forward, shoulders squared, gaze locked on him. You shouldn't be here, Stephen. He laughed, low and humorless. Funny. That's exactly what our parents used to say. His eyes cut toward Aurelia, cruel and gleaming. And yet, here I am. And so is she. Aurelia forced herself to meet his stare. Still playing the predator in the dark, Stephen? 20 years later, and you're still pathetic. His jaw ticked, but he smiled anyway. Oh, little mouse, you still have claws. But claws aren't enough when the cat learns to use teeth. He motioned to the glowing monitors. The data stream scrolled faster, evidence of the breach expanding even as they stood there. Valeria stepped closer, voice like steel. This ends tonight. Whatever game you're running, whatever grudges you're nursing, it dies here. Stephen tilted his head, mocking affection curling his tone. Sweet Valeria. Always the family's golden one. Always protecting what isn't yours. Don't you ever get tired? Her nostrils flared, but she didn't take the bait. Aurelia cut in, her voice clear and sharp. Why Gen X? Why my division? Stephen's smile widened. Because you, Aurelia, built something the world isn't ready for. Machines that obey. Machines that don't tire, don't question. Imagine them not lifting patients, but crushing armies. Not aiding surgeons, but cutting enemies apart. And the best part? His grin turned feral. You made them easy to steal. Her stomach twisted, guilt gnawing, but she stood firm. That's not what I built them for. And yet here we are, Stephen said softly. Intentions don't matter. Power does. Valeria moved again, positioning herself half a step in front of Aurelia now, protective without words. Her hand hovered near her jacket pocket where Aurelia knew she carried something, perhaps a drive, perhaps a weapon. Stephen's gaze lingered on their closeness, and something like disgust flickered across his face. Of course. The mouse and the saint tangled up together. How poetic. Aurelia's chin lifted. At least I found someone who knows how to fight for something other than their own ego. For the first time, Stephen's mask cracked. His smile faltered, replaced by something colder, sharper. He leaned forward, eyes burning. Then let's see if she can keep you alive. The monitors flared bright, alarms shrieking through the warehouse. Crates rattled as one of the stolen exosuits whirred to life behind him, its metal frame lurching forward like a beast waking from slumber. Valeria's hand gripped Aurelia's firmly. Now, she hissed. And in that instant, the dance shifted from words to war. Chapter 11. Fire in the Wires. The exosuit lurched forward, metal feet slamming against concrete, every step a thunderclap in the warehouse. Its eyes glowed a violent red, sensors locked on Aurelia. Stephen's laugh rang out above the shriek of alarms. Let's see how well you fight your own creation. Valeria yanked Aurelia behind a stack of crates just as the machine's arm swung, splintering wood and sending shards scattering. Tell me you have a way to kill that thing, Valeria hissed. It's not alive, Aurelia snapped back, adrenaline spiking. It's a prototype, flawed, unstable. If I can get close enough, I can force an override. Valeria's gaze was sharp. Then I'll buy you time. Before Aurelia could protest, Valeria darted out, pulling a compact device from her jacket. She slid across the floor, jacked into the nearest terminal, and her fingers flew, code spilling across the screens. Stephen growled. Still the little hacker. He lunged toward her, but Aurelia broke cover, yelling to draw his attention. The exosuit turned, sensors locking back onto her. Metal arms extended, hydraulic hiss echoing. Aurelia's mind raced, every bolt, every servo, every line of code she had written replaying in her head. She sprinted forward, ducking under a swipe that smashed a steel beam like it was cardboard. Heart hammering, she reached its back panel and slammed her palm against the emergency release. Nothing. The override had been disabled. "Damn it, Steven, what did you do?" she shouted. Steven smirked, circling like a vulture. "Improved it. Your genius, my ambition. Together, unstoppable." Valeria's voice cut in, sharp and urgent. "Aurelia, move." A second exosuit powered up in the shadows, its chest plate snapping into place with an ominous hiss. Aurelia dove aside just as the first machine swung again. Sparks erupted, the smell of burning metal filling the air. Valeria typed furiously, her face illuminated by the screens. "I can't shut them down remotely. The core commands have been rewritten. But I can blind them." On cue, the exosuit staggered, red eyes flickering, movements jerky. Aurelia seized the moment, sprinting forward with a crowbar she'd grabbed from the floor. She jammed it into the first suit's servo joint, sparks bursting as the machine screeched and toppled sideways. "One down," she yelled. The second exosuit roared to life, barreling toward them. Steven's voice rose above the chaos. "You can break a machine, Aurelia, but you can't break me." Aurelia spun, breathless, glaring at him. "No, but I can end you." The second exosuit charged, and in the blur of noise and heat, Aurelia and Valeria moved as one, her crowbar, Valeria's code, flesh and steel in rhythm. It wasn't just survival anymore. It was a dance. Chapter 12, Breaking Point. The second exosuit charged, metal feet pounding like war drums. Aurelia barely had time to roll aside as its arm crashed down, splitting the floor where she'd stood a heartbeat before. Valeria's voice rang out from behind the terminal, steady despite the chaos. "I've got its vision looped, but it won't hold long." Aurelia gritted her teeth, eyes darting across the machine's body. She knew its weak spots, she had designed them, but Steven's modifications had twisted her work, shored up vulnerabilities, sharpened strengths. The exosuit swung again. Aurelia ducked, felt the air shift as the blow barely missed her head. Sparks flew where steel met steel. Steven stalked from the shadows, a pistol gleaming in his hand. "You'll never be rid of me, Aurelia. You made me the villain. I'm just playing the part." Valeria snapped her head up, fury igniting in her voice. "You did that all by yourself, Steven. Adoption didn't make you family, it gave you a chance. And you spat on it." His gaze darkened. "You always thought you were above me. Above everyone. But Aurelia knows what it feels like to be on the floor, crawling while the world laughs. Don't you, little mouse?" Aurelia froze, memory of the library, the torn books, the humiliation flashing in her chest. But then she straightened, meeting his eyes with fire. "You're wrong. I don't crawl. I fight." The exosuit lunged again, sensors flashing red. Aurelia seized her chance, darting under its arm, crowbar in hand. She drove it into the access panel at its side, sparks exploding as circuits screamed. The machine convulsed, staggered, then crashed to the ground in a heap of smoking steel. Steven's smile faltered, pistol trembling slightly in his hand. You shouldn't have been able to." Valeria stepped out from behind the terminal, gun leveled, her voice low and lethal. "Drop it, Steven. Game's over." For a moment, silence. The only sound was the crackle of dying machines. Then Steven laughed, hollow and bitter. "You think this ends with me? I was just the opening act. Gen X isn't what you think it is. Ask them about their partners. Ask them what they buried." Aurelia's stomach clenched. "What are you talking about?" Steven's smile twisted. "You'll see. And when you do, you'll wish you'd let me win." His finger twitched on the trigger. A gunshot split the air. Steven stumbled, dropping the weapon, blood blooming across his arm. Valeria stood her ground, smoke curling from her barrel, her face cold steel. "I said, drop it." He collapsed against a crate, clutching his wound, But even through the pain, his grin remained. It doesn't matter. The door's already open. Alarms on the monitors screamed louder, streams of data still flowing, proof that Stephen had only been one piece of a larger game. Aurelia's chest heaved, rage and dread mixing into a single fire. She looked at Valeria, blue eyes blazing, weapons still steady, and realized this fight was only beginning. And she was no longer fighting it alone. Chapter 13. Buried Truths. The warehouse stank of smoke and oil, acrid in Aurelia's throat. The two exosuits lay twisted and broken, their frames sparking in the dim light. Stephen sat slumped against a crate, his breath ragged, blood dripping through his fingers. Valeria hadn't lowered her weapon. Her stance was steady, though Aurelia could see the tension in her jaw. "You're going to bleed out if we don't move you," Aurelia said finally, voice clipped. Stephen coughed, dark laughter scraping out of him. "Still the saint, even now. But don't waste your pity. I've already won." Aurelia's fists clenched. "You've lost everything, Stephen. The suits. The data. The element of surprise." His grin widened, teeth stained red. "You think it ends here? You really think I acted alone? You poor little mouse. Gen X isn't your kingdom. You're a pawn in their war." Valeria's eyes narrowed. "What war?" Stephen's gaze slid to her, sharp despite the pain. "The one they've been hiding since before you graduated. The one where partners in suits sip champagne while deciding which lives are worth saving and which ones are worth selling." The words landed like a blow. Aurelia felt the ground tilt beneath her. Gen X had its politics, yes, its boardroom power plays, but war? Selling lives? "You're lying," she whispered. Stephen's laugh echoed, hollow. "Check the offshore accounts. Look up Eidolon. That's where you'll find your answers." Valeria stepped closer, her voice low, dangerous. "And where will we find the rest of your network?" His head lolled back against the crate, eyes glinting with spite. "Too late. They're already inside. You'll see soon enough." Aurelia opened her mouth to demand more, but headlights flared suddenly through the warehouse windows. Black SUVs rolled up outside, engines rumbling, doors slamming. Valeria cursed under her breath. "We've got company." The sound of boots striking pavement filled the air, synchronized, disciplined. Not police. Not random thugs. Something colder. Stephen's bloody laugh followed them as shadows moved toward the entrance. "Told you. The door's already open." Valeria grabbed Aurelia's hand, pulling her toward the back exit. "Move. Now." They sprinted through the dark, hearts hammering, the taste of betrayal thick in the air. Aurelia didn't dare look back, but Stephen's voice chased her into the night. "Run, little mouse. Run." Chapter 14. Fire Escape. The warehouse door exploded inward with a deafening crash. Black-clad figures stormed in, rifles raised, their movements sharp, disciplined. Not thugs, trained operators. Valeria shoved Aurelia down behind a stack of crates as bullets ripped through the air, splinters flying. "Not police," Valeria hissed. "Private. Corporate." Aurelia's chest heaved. "Gen X." Valeria's jaw tightened. "Or Eidolon." Hard to tell the difference anymore. The sound of boots grew closer, heavy and unrelenting. Valeria peeked over the crates, then yanked Aurelia toward the back. "There's a loading bay. If we move fast." Gunfire cut her words short. Aurelia flinched, adrenaline spiking. They sprinted low, weaving between shadows, the thunder of pursuit at their backs. At the bay doors, Valeria slammed a button. The metal screeched upward, too slow, every second stretching like a blade. "Cover me," she barked. Aurelia grabbed a fallen pipe and swung it at the nearest soldier who broke from formation. The impact jarred her arms, but the man crumpled with a grunt. Another rushed, rifle up. Valeria fired 2 clean shots, dropping him before he could aim. The bay door yawned open at last, spilling them into the humid Kingston night. "Go." Valeria shoved Aurelia forward. They tore across the lot, feet pounding against cracked asphalt. More shouts rang out behind them. Muzzle flashes lit the dark. Aurelia's lungs burned. "Where?" Valeria pointed to a narrow fire escape clinging to the side of a derelict building. "Up." They scrambled, metal groaning under their weight. Bullets pinged off the rails, sparks raining. Valeria's hand pressed against Aurelia's back, steadying, urging her higher. By the time they reached the roof, the city sprawled around them, lights flickering, sirens wailing in the distance. Below, the black-clad soldiers fanned out, searching. Aurelia bent over, gasping. "They'll find us." Valeria scanned the horizon, calculating. "Not if we vanish first." "How?" Valeria pulled a slim device from her pocket, pressing it to her ear. "I have contacts. People who owe me favors. But it means going dark, no labs, no phones, no Gen X." Aurelia's heart twisted. Her entire life was Gen X. Her work. Her identity. To walk away, even for a night, felt like tearing out a piece of herself. But then Valeria's hand found hers, fingers threading tight. "Trust me, Alvarenga. Please." The city roared below, the black tide of pursuers closing in. And in that moment, Aurelia chose. She tightened her grip. "Lead the way." Valeria's lips curved, fierce and proud, before she pulled her forward, into the night, into the unknown. And far below, in the warehouse shadows, Stephen Roman watched them go, bloodied but smiling. "Run while you can," he murmured. Eidolon is already watching. Chapter 15. Into the Underworld. They didn't stop running until the neon lights of Kingston blurred into darkness. Valeria led Aurelia through alleys, across deserted streets, always one step ahead of pursuit. By the time they reached the rusted gate of an old auto shop, Aurelia's lungs burned. Valeria rapped 3 times on the side door. A slit opened, eyes glaring, then the door creaked wide. A man with tattoos curling up his neck glanced at Valeria, then at Aurelia, and stepped aside. "She's with me," Valeria said simply. The shop smelled of oil and secrets. In the back, a hidden stairwell descended to a basement lit only by flickering lamps and the glow of monitors. A half-dozen figures worked there, hackers, smugglers, people who existed in the cracks of the city. "Welcome to the underworld," Valeria murmured. Aurelia's brow furrowed. "These are your contacts?" Valeria smirked faintly. "You learn quickly that firewalls don't stop bullets. Sometimes you need ghosts who walk the streets." Aurelia looked around, feeling out of place in her lab coat and corporate polish, yet strangely alive. For the first time in years, she wasn't Dr. Alvarenga, the genius engineer under the glass dome of Gen X. She was just Aurelia, running, fighting, surviving. Valeria guided her to a side room, smaller, quiet, with a single bed against the wall. "Safe here. For tonight." When the door closed, silence settled heavy. Aurelia leaned against the wall, heart still racing. "We can't keep running forever. Gen X will notice my absence. Eidolon, whoever they are, already has their claws in the robotics wing." Valeria stepped closer, her shadow stretching over her. "Then we fight them. Together. No half measures." The words wrapped around Aurelia like a vow. She met Valeria's gaze, ice blue eyes burning, and something inside her broke loose. She reached up, fingers brushing Valeria's jaw, and pulled her into a kiss. This one wasn't desperate like the night before, it was raw, aching, claiming. A kiss of survival, of promise, of fire in the dark. Valeria's hands gripped her waist, pulling her closer. The world outside, the conspiracies, the soldiers, Stephen's shadow vanished. For a moment, there was only this. 2 women who had no choice but to trust, to burn, to belong. When they finally pulled apart, breathless, Aurelia whispered, "What is Eidolon?" Valeria's expression darkened, the fire in her eyes shadowed. "Not a company. Not a government. A network. They buy corporations, bury governments, rewrite wars. And Gen X may already be theirs." The words struck cold into Aurelia's veins. Her life's work. Her company. Already owned, already twisted. Valeria rested her forehead against hers. "We'll uncover it. Piece by piece. But it won't be easy. They'll come for us, Aurelia. Both of us." Aurelia swallowed hard, her grip on Valeria tightening. "Then let them come." And in the underworld glow, amid oil and shadows, they stood together, 2 sparks defying the dark tide rising around them. Chapter 16. The Key in Her Hands. Sleep never came. The hum of servers in the underworld hideout was constant, but what kept Aurelia awake was sharper than sound, the knowledge that everything she had ever built, every blueprint and prototype, was in danger. Because she hadn't trusted Gen X completely, she had always kept her own shadow vaults. Off-grid, encrypted, layered in firewalls no one could breach but her. Every design, every patent, every failure. Her life's work. And that made her the most valuable target in Kingston. By dawn, Valeria was already up, speaking low with her contacts, piecing together the first whispers of Eidolon's reach. When she returned to the small room, Aurelia was sitting on the edge of the bed, laptop open, fingers flying. "You're working," Valeria said flatly. Aurelia didn't look up. "If they want my designs, they'll come for the vaults. I'm not going to hand them over. I'm going to bury them deeper." Valeria crossed the room, stopping just close enough for Aurelia to feel her presence. "And what happens when they stop chasing the data and start chasing you?" Aurelia froze, hands pausing above the keys. Valeria knelt so they were eye to eye, her voice low, raw. "You are the code, Alvarenga. You're the lock and the key. They don't need your machines if they own you." The truth settled like ice in Aurelia's stomach. She wasn't just protecting her work anymore. She was protecting herself. Her voice was steady when she said, "Then they'll never own me." Valeria's eyes softened, fire flickering behind the steel. She leaned closer, her forehead brushing Aurelia's. "That's why we fight together. My code, your machines. Love and war, no half measures." Aurelia's breath caught, chest tightening at the weight of it. For all her genius, for all her fire, she had been alone for so long. Now, someone was choosing to stand in the fire with her. Before she could speak, alarms blared through the basement. Red lights spun, and shouts echoed from the stairwell. One of Valeria's contacts burst through the door. "They found us. They're breaching the shop." Valeria pulled Aurelia to her feet. "Move. Now." The underworld erupted into chaos, hackers grabbing drives, smugglers scattering, weapons drawn. The shop above shook with the force of a battering ram slamming against the door. Valeria drew her pistol, pressing Aurelia's laptop into her hands. "Keep that alive. Whatever happens, don't let it go." Aurelia clutched it to her chest, pulse hammering. "What about you?" Valeria's smile was fierce, defiant. "I'll cover us. Just keep building the future they're trying to steal." The door above splintered. Boots thundered. Gunfire cracked. And together they plunged into the smoke, Aurelia with her codes and firewalls, Valeria with her gun and grit, love and war, fusing into one unstoppable rhythm. Chapter 17. Streets of Fire. The night split open with gunfire. Aurelia and Valeria burst out the back of the auto shop into Kingston's narrow streets, neon signs flickering above them. Black-clad pursuers spilled from SUVs, rifles up, boots striking pavement in perfect rhythm. Valeria fired 2 shots behind them, dropping the lead man, then grabbed Aurelia's wrist. "Move." They ran, weaving through market stalls and shadowed alleys. Vendors shouted, ducking as bullets tore through tarps and shattered crates. Aurelia clutched her laptop tight against her chest, lungs burning, the world blurring. But she wasn't just running. Her mind spun as fast as her pulse, dissecting every detail of the machines chasing them, the hum of their drones overhead, the angle of their armored vans. Patterns. Weaknesses. At the end of the street, a Gen X supply drone hovered low, one of her own designs retrofitted for deliveries. Aurelia skidded to a stop. "Valeria, stall them." Valeria cursed but obeyed, stepping into the open, firing precise shots that drove their hunters into cover. Aurelia sprinted to the drone, fingers flying across its access panel. Sparks flared as she bypassed the standard code, slipping into her hidden override, the one only she knew. The drone's lights shifted from green to blood red. With a whir of rotors, it pivoted, locking onto the soldiers. "Now!" Aurelia shouted. The drone screamed forward, slamming into their armored van. The explosion ripped through the night, fire blooming across the street. Soldiers dove for cover as debris rained down. Valeria glanced at Aurelia, astonishment flashing in her ice-blue eyes. You turned a delivery drone into a damn missile. Aurelia's lips curved in a grim smile. It's not the first time I've weaponized necessity. They sprinted again, ducking into another alley as sirens wailed in the distance. Overhead, another swarm of drones buzzed like angry hornets. Valeria reloaded, her voice clipped. They're adapting fast. Someone's feeding them your moves in real time. Aurelia's stomach tightened. Which means, the insider's still pulling strings, Valeria finished. The alley opened into a wider square. Two open, two exposed. The sound of engines roared as another SUV skidded into view, doors flying open. Valeria raised her weapon, but Aurelia grabbed her arm. Wait. Cover me. She sprinted to a nearby streetlight, yanking open its maintenance panel. Inside, one of her older designs glowed, a smart grid relay she'd helped pioneer for Kingston's infrastructure years ago. Her fingers blurred across the wires, her laptop balanced on one knee. Code spilled across her screen, merging with hardware, rewriting commands. The square went dark. For 2 heartbeats, silence. Then every streetlight in the district flared back on at once, overloaded, bursting into a chain of sparks and fire. Circuits screamed, glass shattered, and the SUV's systems fried in an instant, engine dying mid-crawl. The pursuers stumbled, disoriented in the storm of light and sparks. Valeria didn't waste the opening. She pulled Aurelia close and dragged her into the shadows. Breathless, Aurelia clung to her laptop. They'll keep coming. As long as I exist, they'll hunt me. Valeria's grip on her arm tightened, voice fierce. Then let them come. Because as long as you exist, so do I. Their eyes locked, the firestorm around them paling to nothing. For a heartbeat, love and war fused again, their survival no longer 2 stories, but one. Chapter 18. Cracks in the Glass. They didn't stop until their legs ached and the chaos of the chase faded into the hum of distant traffic. Valeria led Aurelia into a shuttered cafe on a quiet street. The lock was flimsy, a single twist of Valeria's knife, and they were inside. The smell of old coffee lingered. Dust coated the counters, but it was shelter. For now. Aurelia slumped into a chair, laptop still clutched to her chest, every nerve buzzing. They're not going to stop. Valeria crouched in front of her, hand warm against her knee. No. But we're alive, and that means we're ahead. Aurelia met her gaze, heart pounding. Even here, even now, Valeria radiated that mix of danger and calm that both unsettled and anchored her. She wanted to lean into it, but the fire of survival kept her upright. She opened the laptop, fingers flying. Code spilled across the screen, familiar, safe. If I can trace the command signals from the exosuits, I can find the access point. Whoever the insider is, they left a trail. Valeria rose, moving to stand guard by the window. Do it fast. We're still exposed. Minutes ticked by, broken only by the rapid clatter of Aurelia's keys. Her eyes narrowed, following the threads, firewalls folding, lines of intrusion intersecting until she froze. Valeria. Her voice was tight. Valeria was at her side instantly. What is it? Aurelia pointed to the screen. The trace led not to some nameless technician, not to an external saboteur. It led to a name that twisted her stomach into ice. Dr. Marcus Healy. Her mentor. The man who had first recruited her to Gen X. Valeria's jaw clenched. The insider. Aurelia shook her head, disbelief cutting sharp. He gave me my first lab. He backed every prototype. He believed in me when no one else did. Valeria's hand pressed against hers, steady. Or he made sure you'd build exactly what Eidolon wanted. The weight of betrayal pressed down, heavier than the night's chase, heavier than Stephen's taunts. Aurelia swallowed hard, her throat tight. All these years, I thought I was creating for life. He was grooming me to create for war. Valeria squeezed her hand tighter. Then we burn his war before it starts. The laptop chimed, a new signal pinging, sharp and invasive. Aurelia's eyes widened. They're tracing me. Right now. Valeria snapped the laptop closed, shoving it into Aurelia's bag. Then we move. Now. They bolted from the cafe into the night once more, shadows stretching long across Kingston streets. Behind them, in the silence of the cafe, Aurelia's laptop screen flickered back on. A single message pulsed across it. Hello, Aurelia. Chapter 19. Voices in the Wire. They ducked into a half-collapsed apartment block, concrete walls cracked and tagged with graffiti, the smell of mildew thick in the air. It wasn't safe, but it was shelter. Valeria barred the door with a broken beam, then turned, scanning the room. We've bought minutes, not hours. Talk to me, Aurelia. What did you see? Aurelia slid the laptop from her bag, heart hammering as she flipped it open. The screen glowed with a single line of text pulsing like a heartbeat. Hello, Aurelia. Her throat went dry. She typed, hands shaking. Who are you? The reply came instantly. We are Eidolon. Valeria leaned close, her presence a steel anchor beside her. They've already breached your system. Aurelia shook her head, defiance burning. Not mine. Not completely. They're talking to me because they can't take it without me. Another line appeared. You built the future. Give us the key and you live to finish it. Aurelia's pulse thundered. She typed back, fingers flying. Never. My work is for life, not war. The screen flickered. Life and war are the same. Your mentor understood. He serves us still. Aurelia's stomach twisted, bowel rising. Marcus. Oh God, Valeria. It's true. He's with them. Valeria's hand covered hers on the keyboard, grounding her. Then he made the worst mistake of his life. More words appeared, cold and relentless. You are already ours, Aurelia. We will take you whole, or we will take you broken. The laptop's camera light blinked on, red and watchful. Aurelia's breath caught as though unseen eyes had stepped into the room. Valeria snapped the laptop shut, cutting the feed. We're exposed. They're not threatening you, Aurelia. They're claiming you. That makes you their obsession and their weakness. Aurelia stared at her bag, chest heaving. For the first time, the weight of what she carried felt unbearable. Not just blueprints. Not just machines. But the power to shape life or ruin it. If I'm their weakness, she whispered, then I have to be the weapon too. Valeria's gaze burned, fierce and unwavering. Then we fight. With your genius. With my code. Together, we'll tear Eidolon out by its roots. Aurelia met her eyes, a spark flaring despite the dread. No walls. No half measures. Valeria leaned closer, her lips brushing hers like a vow. No surrender. And somewhere far away, behind countless screens and faceless hands, Eidolon watched their defiance and began to move its pawns. Chapter 20. Stormfront. The city did not sleep that night. Kingston streets buzzed with sirens, engines, and the restless hum of neon. Aurelia and Valeria kept low in the ruins of the apartment block, the laptop await between them. Valeria paced, pistol in hand, eyes sharp. They'll come fast. They've marked you, Aurelia. You're not data anymore, you're their prize. Aurelia sat hunched over her machine, fingers flying, weaving fresh encryptions around her vaults. Every keystroke was defiance. Every line of code another wall only she could open. Then, as if to answer, the world outside erupted. Engines roared. Headlights cut across the cracked windows. Black SUVs slid into position, surrounding the block. Boots struck pavement in perfect rhythm. Valeria's eyes narrowed. They're here. Gunfire shattered the silence. Bullets tore into the walls, dust raining from the ceiling. Aurelia ducked, shielding the laptop with her body. Valeria crouched beside her, voice steady despite the storm. Listen to me. They'll breach. They'll kill everyone in this building to take you alive. You can't let them. Aurelia's chest heaved. What are you saying? Valeria's ice blue gaze locked on hers. If they break through, you run. Leave me. Protect the vaults. Aurelia's jaw clenched, fury burning hot. No. We do this together, or not at all. The door downstairs slammed open. Shouts echoed, boots pounding up the stairwell. Aurelia's fingers danced over the keys, tapping into the building's ancient electrical grid. She rerouted the current, overloading circuits, priming every line for detonation. Valeria caught on instantly. "You're turning the building into a trap." "Into a firewall," Aurelia corrected. "Physical, not digital." The first soldier burst through the stairwell door, rifle raised. Valeria dropped him with 2 shots. Another followed, then 3 more. The room filled with smoke and chaos. Aurelia hit enter. The building groaned as the grid screamed alive. Light fixtures exploded, sparks showering down. The stairwell filled with fire, cutting off the next wave of soldiers. Valeria grabbed Aurelia's hand. "Move. Roof access." They sprinted up the last flight, bursting onto the rooftop just as a helicopter thundered overhead, its spotlight blazing down. Wind whipped their hair, the noise deafening. A voice boomed through a loudspeaker, cold and mechanical. "Aurelia Alvarenga. Surrender the vaults. Surrender yourself." Live. Aurelia's pulse thundered. The beam of light pinned her, made her feel small, exposed, hunted. But Valeria pressed against her side, pistol steady, voice in her ear like steel. "Don't listen. They don't own you. They'll never own you." Aurelia raised her laptop high, sparks still dancing from its edges. She screamed into the night, every nerve burning. "You want me? Then you'll have to kill me." The helicopter hovered, hesitation rippling through its faceless machine voice. And for the first time, Eidolon faltered. Chapter 21. Fire and Defiance. The helicopter's blades tore at the night sky, its spotlight burning down on them like judgment. Aurelia stood tall against it, laptop clutched to her chest, fire in her eyes. Valeria's stance was pure steel beside her, pistol raised, body a shield, a vow. From the loudspeaker, that cold voice pressed again. "Last chance, Aurelia Alvarenga. The vaults or your life." Aurelia's laugh was sharp, bitter, echoing across the rooftop. "My work doesn't belong to you. It never will." She dropped to one knee, fingers tearing across the laptop. Code spilled, rewriting the very airwaves around them. "You want my vaults? Try and open them yourselves. I've locked them into me. My DNA, my heartbeat, my mind." The voice crackled. "Impossible." "Then you don't know me," Aurelia spat, slamming a final key. The laptop's signal surged, hijacking the helicopter's comms, bending its systems to her will. The spotlight sputtered, the engines whined. The machine lurched violently, spiraling just enough to send shouts of panic crackling across the feed. Valeria grabbed Aurelia, pulling her back from the ledge as debris rained from the rotor wash. "You're insane." Aurelia's breathless smile burned fierce. "No, Valeria. I'm free." But the victory was short-lived. Across the rooftop, black-clad soldiers poured from the stairwell, rifles raised. Dozens of them, shadows in formation. Valeria stepped forward, pistol steady though outnumbered 10-1. "Stay behind me." Aurelia shook her head, fire sparking in her veins. "No, we fight together." For a heartbeat, the chaos stilled. The storm above. The soldiers below. 2 women against the tide. Then Valeria leaned in, lips brushing Aurelia's ear, voice low and raw. "No walls. No half measures. No surrender." Aurelia's heart clenched, their bond sealing not with fear, but with fire. "No surrender," she echoed. The rooftop exploded into chaos. Gunfire roared, sparks flying. Aurelia unleashed her machines, overriding drones, overloading circuits, turning the city's tech against Eidolon's soldiers. Valeria moved like lightning, every shot precise, every step a shield around Aurelia. They weren't 2 stories anymore. They were one. And as the helicopter reeled overhead and soldiers fell in droves, even Eidolon, faceless, endless, must have felt it, the moment their prey became their hunters. Chapter 22. Blood and Ash. The ruins of Kingston still smoldered when Aurelia and Valeria reached the old docks. The sea crashed hard against steel pylons, the air thick with salt and smoke. Waiting there, framed by the skeleton of a collapsed warehouse, was Stephen Roman. He looked older than Aurelia remembered, hollow eyes, blood on his shirt, shoulders hunched as though even his betrayal had cost him. Yet his smile was sharp, The same one he'd worn when he taught her to fight, when he told her they were family. You always did run toward fire, Aurelia. Valeria stepped forward, gun raised. Step away. Now. Stephen lifted his hands, palms bare, but his smirk lingered. Careful, Constantine. You've always been a little too quick to pull the trigger. Besides, Eidolon won't let you end this so easily. Aurelia's voice cracked, the weight of adoption, betrayal, and love twisting inside her. You're working for them. After everything, we were children together, Stephen. You were my brother. Stephen's smile faltered, just for a breath. Then it hardened. I was your shield. And what did that get me? While you built empires and labs, I was carving survival out of the gutter. Eidolon gave me purpose. Valeria snarled. They gave you chains. Stephen's gaze slid to Aurelia, sharp and almost pleading. They'll never stop, Aurelia. You're the key. Give them what they want and you'll live. Keep fighting and everyone you love will burn. Including her. His glance at Valeria was a blade. Aurelia's hands shook, but not with fear. With clarity. For so long, she'd let Stephen's shadow linger, excusing him, forgiving him. Not anymore. She lifted her laptop, opening it with deliberate calm. You always underestimated me, Stephen. You thought I needed you to protect me. But I was building walls you could never breach. Lines of code lit the screen, a heartbeat of defiance. Valeria stepped closer, ice blue eyes locked on Stephen. Last chance. Walk away. Stephen's hand twitched toward his weapon. Aurelia hit enter. The dock's floodlights flared alive, then burst, plunging the world into red emergency glow. Eidolon's systems screamed through the laptop, their encrypted commands unraveling as Aurelia's override took hold. Drones above spasmed mid-flight, crashing into the sea. Black-clad soldiers on the dock staggered as their exosuits locked, freezing them in place. Stephen stared, disbelief carved into his face. What have you done? Aurelia's voice was steel. I've rewritten the vaults. Without me, they're nothing. With me, they're a weapon. Against you. Against Eidolon. Valeria's pistol never wavered. Game over. Stephen's lips trembled, torn between rage and something almost like regret. You think this ends here? Eidolon isn't a man you can kill. It's a god. And gods don't die. Aurelia closed the laptop with a snap. Then we'll build a new one. For the first time, Stephen's mask cracked, pain flashing in his eyes. You were my sister. Valeria's throat tightened, tears burning. And you chose to be my enemy. Valeria fired. One shot. Clean. Final. Stephen fell to the dock, the sea swallowing his last breath. The silence that followed was heavier than the gunfire. Aurelia swayed, the weight of what she'd lost and one pressing down. Valeria caught her, pulling her close. It's done. You're free. Aurelia buried her face against her shoulder, whispering through tears, no walls. No half measures. Valeria's arms tightened, a promise in the wreckage. No surrender. And as the sea crashed and Eidolon's grip shattered in Kingston, a new dawn waited to be built from blood and ash. Chapter 23. Rebuilding the Future. Days bled into weeks, and Kingston began to heal. The fires were extinguished, the streets swept clean of shell casings, but the city carried its scars. Rumors spread of shadow wars, of corporations that bled power into the gutters, of a faceless enemy routed by two women who had no business surviving. But Aurelia and Valeria didn't care for rumors. They stood in the heart of Aurelia's new lab, hidden, stripped bare of Gen X logos, rebuilt from stolen parts and salvaged servers. Here, the future hummed differently. Not for profit. Not for war. For freedom. Aurelia worked at a bench, sleeves rolled up, hair tied back, her fingers moving with restless brilliance over a prototype drone. This one wasn't built to spy or kill. It was designed to carry medicine, food, aid. Her fire was still there, but it was pointed toward life again. Valeria leaned against the doorway, arms crossed, watching her. You don't stop, do you? Aurelia glanced up, a faint smile tugging her lips. You knew that when you dragged me out of Kingston alive. Valeria pushed off the frame, stepping closer. I didn't drag you. We fought our way out together. Their eyes met. For a heartbeat, the weight of everything they'd survived hung between them: Stephen's betrayal, Idolin's shadow, the rooftop firestorm. And then Aurelia set the drone aside and stood. Together, she echoed, voice softer now, almost fragile. Valeria reached out, brushing her fingers along Aurelia's wrist. No walls. No half measures. Aurelia's breath caught, her hand tightening around Valeria's. No surrender. The kiss that followed wasn't frantic, wasn't desperate like the ones before. It was steady, grounding, the kind of kiss that says, I choose you. Now. Tomorrow. Always. Clothes tangled, laptops forgotten, the hum of servers fading into the background as the lab became a different kind of sanctuary. Their intimacy was raw, not polished, two women scarred by fire, finding gentleness in each other's arms. For the first time, Aurelia allowed herself to be vulnerable, and Valeria held her like the most precious code she'd ever cracked. When the night gave way to dawn, Aurelia lay against Valeria's chest, listening to her steady heartbeat. What happens now? Valeria kissed her hair, her voice low, certain. Now we build. Not for them. Not for war. For us. And as the first light crept across the lab's glass, Aurelia believed her. For the first time in her life, she wasn't fighting alone. She was building a future, one forged in fire, sealed in love. Epilogue, Embers of Tomorrow. The world outside kept turning. Kingston's skyline rose scarred but standing, its people whispering of battles no newspaper dared print. Gen X issued hollow press releases, swearing stability. Idolin fell silent, its faceless reach retreating into the shadows for now. But Aurelia and Valeria had stopped looking over their shoulders. On a quiet hill outside the city, Aurelia's new workshop glowed warm against the night. No corporate seal adorned it, no glass tower looming above, just walls built with her own hands, machines tuned to her own pulse, and the rhythm of life stitched back together. Inside, the air smelled of solder and coffee. The servers hummed, but the space wasn't just a lab anymore. It was a home. Aurelia sat cross-legged on the floor, sketching designs in a notebook instead of on a screen. Lighter machines, clean energy modules, drones meant to heal, not harm. Every line of ink carried freedom. Valeria patted over, barefoot, a rare softness on her face. She dropped down beside her, stealing the pen with a sly grin. You're supposed to be resting, genius. Aurelia leaned into her, warmth flooding her chest. And you're supposed to stop bossing me around. Valeria chuckled, setting the pen aside and pulling Aurelia gently into her lap. That's not happening. Their kiss was slow, unhurried, a language spoken without code or firewalls. Hands wandered, not with urgency, but with reverence, exploring, learning, memorizing. For the first time, there was no battle at their backs, no enemies in their shadows. Just two women stripped of pretense, of walls, of fear. Later, tangled in sheets on the workshop cot, Aurelia whispered into Valeria's shoulder, "We're not finished. Idolin isn't gone." Valeria's fingers traced lazy circles along her spine. "Then let them come. We'll be ready. Together." Aurelia smiled against her skin, a tired but fierce smile. No walls. No half measures. Valeria kissed the crown of her head, her voice a vow carried into the quiet night. No surrender. Outside, the cicadas hummed, the city lights flickered, and the world spun on, unaware that its future now lived in the embers of a revolution born not just from war, but from love. Thank you so much for listening. Please subscribe and like this video and follow me for more stories. You are always welcome here, and leave me a comment or a thumbs up, just letting me know if you like the story and would like more, or is there perhaps an idea that you would like to share or let me write for you.